Hello and welcome, boils and ghouls and all the creeps in between. Midnightcryptworx here. Hope everybody's having a great day. So today I want to talk about this hashtag/challenge that I'm going to be participating in this month. So this is going to be hashtag Witches Black Lent.
Welcome to the crypt.
So what is this Witches Black Lent, you say? So a friend of mine, Jasmine Ambrosia, came up with this awesome idea about picking a deadly sin out of these 7 deadly sins, and picking one and kind of embracing and researching and finding the beneficial ways of using this sin and kind of incorporating it in your life and really kind of inverting the whole sin aspect to it. So I am picking wrath, and to me, wrath is a very kind of far-fetched idea in my life, and I think that's why I think it's a good sin to research and almost embody in a way. So week 1 is actually to pick a sin, research it, and think of beneficial ways to put it in your life, and so on and so on, right? So wrath, I have notes down here, so I might be looking down a lot. I also actually happen to have the Divine Comedy by Dante right here. That I might read Hell version or the Inferno. By the way, the illustrations in here are just to die for. I mean, gorgeous. I might read this just to help my research. I did read this a long time ago in school, but when you're required to read something, it's not as fun. So I might read this, but I just love this book either way. So it's going to be some of my research for wrath. So when you think of wrath, you probably think of anger, rage, revenge, aggression, hatred, violence, maybe even resentment. But to me, honestly, I think resentment is more towards envy. But that's just me. But there's a great quote that is in the Bible that is Proverbs 15:1 that is really interesting to me. It says, "A gentle answer turns away my wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." Now to me, that means that wrath isn't just hatred. It's about seeking justice in a way. It might be talking about an eye for an eye and stuff like that. So it's not about just hatred. As it says, a gentle answer turns away my wrath. So if you're good to me, I'll be good to you. You know what I mean? But a harsh word stirs up anger. So if you're gonna talk shit to me, I'm going to do the same thing to you because it angers me. You see what I'm saying? But like I was saying earlier, I really want to work with wrath because it's just not really like me. I am a person who hates drama. I don't like violence and fighting. I've never been in a physical fight in my life. I don't like that stuff, and I tend to shy away from that stuff. And that's why I think wrath would be a very good sin for me to research and work with, I guess. Because and I will get to this a little later, when you're kind of not embracing wrath, there's a lot of things that will be looked over or will be, will be condoning different situations. So let's start with the definition of wrath, okay? So the definition is strong, vengeful anger or indignation, okay? Y'all know I can't talk. Retributory punishment for an offense or crime. So that's a completely different definition from what I was talking about earlier when I was saying anger, rage, revenge. Well, revenge, I guess, is right. Aggression, hatred, stuff like that. It's not only about anger and rage, right? It's about a vengeful anger because of oppression or because of wrongful doing onto you. And it can also be like a punishment for a crime, or a punishment for an offense, or a punishment for something wrong done to you or somebody else. So that's the actual definition of wrath. So what's indignation? Let's see, shall we? Anger or annoyance provoked by what is perceived as unfair treatment. Again, unfair treatment. So it's not just about if you have wrath, you have hatred in your heart, or you have anger in your heart. No, it's something that somebody has done to make you feel some type of way. So what are some bad things or side effects if you don't have the sin of wrath in your life? So if you didn't have this, then what are side effects of not having wrath is what I'm trying to ask. So for me, I wrote down complacency, because let's say if you didn't have the wrath and you saw somebody get beaten up down the street, you're just going to be complacent in that crime, right? You're not going to do anything to help. Your wrath isn't there. The anger isn't there. The passion isn't there. So you're just going to let it happen, right? So complacency is one. Injustice, I guess that kind of corresponds with complacency, or no consequence. So if you don't have wrath, then there's a lot of people that will get away with certain things. And I think that also coincides with my next point, which is boundaries. If you don't have wrath or that type of emotion in you, then people are going to walk all over you because you're not going to have boundaries. Now, if you don't have boundaries, then people are going to take advantage of you. People are going to steal from you. People are going to hurt you, so on and so on, right? And wrath is really important too, to seek justice, because I feel like if you don't have that emotion, then there's no emotion or anger that's going to go towards giving people what they deserve for bad things they've done. So it kind of, to me, gives them a key to do whatever the fuck they want, and that's not fair. But if you have boundaries, if you have this wrath, then people will be afraid to mess with you, to cross those boundaries. Because if they cross these boundaries that you have set, your wrath takes over, your anger takes over, your anger for injustice, your anger for unfair punishment towards you takes over. So without wrath, these things can run rampant, in my opinion. And that's one thing I think that, or a lot of things I think that wrath is good for, and that is here for. And I'm not saying that, somebody steals your car, go and kill them. No. But you have the wrath of calling the police and seeking justice, right? If you didn't have that, you would be complacent. You wouldn't have a car anymore. They would have got away with it, and then they probably would have stolen another car and another car and another car, right? How can we use wrath in a positive way and in a beneficial way? I kind of touched on it earlier, but I want to go in more depth with that. So I'm very aware that wrath can absolutely spiral out of control. But I think what's good about this challenge is to embrace these sins and control them, because as witches, that's what we do. We control and manipulate energy for a outcome, right? So we can, or me, can absolutely control wrath. But for me, wrath is passion, and I think might be almost one of the purest forms of passion. And what we have when we have wrath and when we have passion is we have protection. We have protection from ourselves. We have protection for others. We have justice. That kind of is almost the same thing. As well as our environment, protection for our environment, protection for our animals, our plants, stuff like that. Again, boundaries. We have boundaries when we have wrath, right? You fuck with me, you're going to get the wrath, right? Also, self-love and self-empowerment. When you have these boundaries and you have this underlining wrath, of yourself, then it's very, I feel like it's going to be, for me, it's going to be very empowering, and I think it's going to really boost my self-love and my confidence because of, again, the walls, the boundaries, that I'm putting in place for myself. And I think witches have been doing this for centuries, taking these teachings of these religions that are bigger than us, and the biggest religion in the world is Christianity, I think. Witches have been taking these things from religion and inverting them for a long time, because a lot of these ideals are scare tactics for people, and they promote bigotry, and they promote segregation and things like this. And I think witches have been using the power of inverting these things as a method of getting out of this oppression, out of this bigotry, and empowering the opposite of these religious ideals. So what Jasmine is doing isn't really new, but not saying it's not amazing, but witches have been doing this for centuries, and I think we should keep on doing this and find new ways of doing this, just like Ambrosia is doing, finding new ways of empowerment and getting out of this oppression towards witches and towards witches with religion, so I think this is another great aspect of wrath, is to get out of oppression. One more thing I wanted to touch on too is God and the Christian look at sin and wrath, because Christians like to give God some sort of pass because he's a supernatural being and he's the source, right? So he can do no wrong. He's perfect. But God has wrath too. So I feel like if we are judging humans by the sin, God has sinned also, right? And that's not fair just to say that he's all-knowing and perfect so he can't sin. He has sinned. He has wrath. Because what does he do? If somebody doesn't worship him, they go to hell. That's his wrath. That's his punishment to them, right? And I think that's very hypocritical, in my opinion. So that's my week 1, and of course I've said the name a billion times. My sin is wrath, and I'm really looking forward to working with it. Just because I have been complacent in my life, I have been too nice at times and kind of avoiding certain situations because I don't like confrontation, and confrontation sometimes is necessary, and you really need to know how to use this in a smart and effective way, and I think that's what wrath is going to teach me. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Jasmine. All her info's down below, and I can't wait to see what everybody else comes up with. Thank you so much. Pleasant screams, bugs, and kisses. Bye.